Okay, we're back to talk about Silo, Apple TV Season 3, Episode 7, titled Radio. This episode written by Remy Obashan and directed by Arik Avellino. In the before times, Daniel and Helen are introduced to the world's richest man, Per Stinson, who's working with Senator Thurman on some kind of secret project. They also bring out Charlotte and her doctor, who are with their group and apparently important to the project as well. After signing a mountain of NDAs to fly with Stinson, Thurman, and Charlotte to Georgia, then hop on helicopters to a property owned by Stinson that he bought from 42 Georgia farmers. When they get close to the location, Daniel notices a large drill digging a hole into the ground. In Silo 18, Juliet prepares Lucas and Patrick for the trip over to Silo 17, and Patrick promises to get Lucas there, but then he wants to go off on his own. Robert tells Juliet that the vitamin D plus is already in the water, so they all need to stop drinking it immediately. As they approach the silo, Patrick and Lucas are seemingly ambushed, and Silo 18 loses contact with them. Camille then tells Juliet that they both died. After learning about the tainted water, Bernard and the team tell Juliet that she has a choice to make. She could do something to blow up a section of the silo, which could kill up to 1,000 people, but would undo what Camille has done with the water, or that she can watch everyone in the silo slowly lose their memory, which could lead to thousands more dying. This scenario has apparently happened before when Salvador Quinn was the head of IT, as was documented in the recently located mission diary that Gloria Hildebrand, a former flamekeeper, gives to Juliet. Thinking Patrick and Lucas have been killed before they got to the other silo, Juliet gives the go-ahead for the bombing, but they call it off the last second when Patrick checks in and reports they made it to Silo 17. Really was sort of was attracted to what happened in Silo 17 in this episode. Just this Sophie's choice that Juliet has to make. So I thought was very compelling. I think we may finally be at the end of the long transportation journey that Daniel and Helen have been on, but I think that means that in these last three episodes of the season, we're going to really start connecting some dots of what's being built here, which is pretty clear once we see drills in the ground.
Yeah, and to start by giving the series credit, I feel like they've really built this kind of propulsive momentum
Hmm.
this season in a way that, at least for me, I don't know that I quite feel like they did in previous seasons. At least not to this extent. It's odd though, because at the same time, I wanted to be sure to say that because I fear that it might sound like I'm a little frustrated because um, I want, in particular, the Before Times storyline to go further. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So maybe we should start there because it's again, we don't actually get all that much when you sit down and think about it,
No.
and it's actually been several weeks at this point, watching it week to week, where it's like, okay. Daniel gets his phone call, like, "Oh, I found this information you're not gonna believe." That was like 3 episodes ago.
Yes, it was.
And then they spend the episode in the car that gets hijacked by AI or whatever, and show up at this hangar. And now in this episode, it's basically like, "Hey, sign these NDAs, and we're going to take you to see the biggest secret in the world." But we don't get there. All the furthest we get is looking at a drill out the window, and it's like, man, we already knew there was going to be some connection to the silos here. Like that's not that
Right, right,
revelatory.
right,
So, at the same time, I don't know about you. I mean, I've been enjoying those scenes well enough. There are a couple other things I do want to hit on in talking through the
yeah.
before time stuff. Um, yeah, just overall, even if I'm a little frustrated that we haven't got more information yet, I feel like the this episode, was well paced. There was
Hmm.
momentum to it. It carried me through it. When it ended, I basically wanted to watch the next episode right
Yeah.
away.
We have we have had this conversation on other discussions about these episodes. I'll You and I both hold off on watching the next one until we have these conversations about. So
Yeah.
I will be going in tonight and watching the next one because maybe much like you, we have been fans of the show for now almost three seasons. So we knew going into the four times the what. We just want to know the why. And I think we're
Yeah.
getting very close to the why. And I have a feeling that 8 through 10 are really gonna push us in that direction. So I am actually very, very interested to see where it goes. As you said, there was no surprise to see a silo being dug. We've known for some years now that they exist. So we just need to have the understanding of what is this project, how is it saving the world, and what do silos have to do with it.
Yeah. And yeah, cards on the table. We're having the same experience as everyone else. Like thanks to Apple, has given us screeners for the shows, as
Yep.
Brian was alluding to. So be straightforward about that. And it gives us the opportunity to watch it and for me to get my article ready. That you can go read on tvobsessive.com and have it out like right away. And this podcast, record a little bit early. Um, but then we go through the same experience as everyone else, waiting a whole week, basically, because of, he's like, well, we're going to wait to talk about it. So it's like the same experience, just like a little earlier or something. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but where was I going to go? Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about the other stuff in the before times a little bit, because we do finally get introduced to Peter Stenson. This is Colin
Yes.
Hanks' character. Been waiting for Colin Hanks to show up, knowing that he was in the cast. Um, I don't know. Maybe let's start with thoughts about him. How does he strike you, this fellow, Per Stenson?
Yeah, clearly just sort of a combination, a mashup of lots of billionaires and tech bros and tech giants that we know of in today's age. Per Stinson is a creation of the show, not a part of the books, not a part of that story, and so interesting that they have a character like that involved. Whereas in the books, this is all sort of a government conspiracy. But in terms of this show, I guess they need a funder, they need an idea person, they need oh, you can do it off the books person. And so they've partnered with this person, which we still don't know much about, other than A, world's richest person, B, has had whatever this idea is that needs to save the world, and C, they've got at least some sort of massive amount of funding and technology to do things like create these silos. Um, uh, Bioengineer unicorns, things like that.
Yeah.
So I thought that stuff like that was in there, really to just sort of give you a sense of, yeah, this is the type of stuff that billionaires and maybe even in this sense trillionaires would try to do to bioengineer a unicorn.
Yeah. See, one thing I think is interesting is that they definitely made some effort in this episode to make him likable to some
Yeah,
degree. At least
yeah,
he's like an affable fellow, you know.
yeah.
Even with a unicorn thing, he says like, "Oh, we called off the project because some other billionaire offered me money to hunt and kill one, and billionaires are the worst or whatever." And it's like, okay, well, I'm not buying it personally. I still think you're a bad guy. I don't know for sure yet, really.
Yeah.
I don't, from a certain point of view, you might think, like, we don't have enough information. It's like, I have enough information. He's the richest person in the world,
We know.
absolutely
We
evil.
know.
And I'm almost want to say, like, it's really odd how, I don't know if it's fair to lump in the guy from Alien Earth here, but I'm going to. Boy Cavalier or whatever. You see that show, people? I'm
Yes.
not going to go into spoilers. But, like, again, this sort of like trillionaire in that show, right? Um, it's interesting because it's like one cannot help but draw certain parallels to real world billionaires and so on.
Hmm.
And then I always feel like I like the fictional guy better.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So I don't know exactly what to say about that exactly. Like I'm almost tempted to criticize the show for making it seem like the richest man in the world would be um this witty. You know what I mean? Like I don't think
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
I mean, they did sort of the two sides of the coin this episode. Just sign the NDAs and I'll give you $1 million. Just sort of trying to coerce them that way, but also oh yeah, I took these farms and I made them generationally wealthy. They don't have their family forever now doesn't have to worry about money. Just trying to paint himself as a benefactor or a philanthropist of sorts, and so you sort of trying to paint them in lots of different brushes. But I'm with you. I think we can tell that they have positioned this character much like a real life character that we would if put any of these people in front of us, we would say, no, not interested in what they have to offer or what they're selling us.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. Um I don't Well, okay, a couple of things. One thing I wanted to mention, this was very marginal, but I did think it was interesting how they throw a number out there and say 42 farms, and then we
Yeah,
know 51 silos. So I don't know. I don't know if that means anything or
yeah.
matters in any way. I just thought it was kind of noteworthy that they gave us a number. Um, the biggest question, though, as you were saying before, is like, okay, well, what is the reason? And I guess in particular, with the information the show has given us about some connection with this war with Iran and whatever
Hmm.
within the show, I'm struggling to speculate in a fruitful way. You know, it's like they're talking about saving the world. For me, I guess I could only really think of two possible scenarios where the idea of living in an underground silo for generations held up as a possible solution to the problem. And like one was like nuclear Armageddon, and the other is
Yeah.
climate catastrophe kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I guess it's possible that it will be that, but like the climate catastrophe one doesn't quite line up with the Iran war stuff. And then I don't know. I guess I'm hoping that this story is going to do something that feels a bit more distinctive and that my inability to predict it beforehand is going to be something where when I do find out, I'm I don't know, happily surprised or even
Yeah.
more intrigued or something like this. And I want to throw it to you now, Ryan, but I know you poked around the books a little bit, so I don't even want to say like can't tell you anything.
Yeah, no, I can't say one single word about this topic. And any connections or you might draw between, what has happened in Iran, what happened to Charlotte, why these silos are being dug. I'm going to predict that you will. Well, I'll say first, you are certainly in my mind not alone in sort of trying to make the what would be the connection here. Why
Yeah,
does this, what is the thing here that can draw these pieces together? I think you will be quite satisfied when and if they make that connection, assuming that they are sticking to the story that I'm familiar with. It certainly could go off book, as it were, but there is a connection there. We will at some point, in some time, in some way, find out what it is.
yeah, and hopefully next episode, hopefully next week, right? Because come
Yeah,
on, I mean, I will start to get frustrated if we don't at least get
yeah,
more clues in the next episode because that's if I'm frustrated about anything, it's not just that like I want them to give me the answers. I feel like they haven't even given me any clues for several episodes, not really. Um
yeah, yeah. I think. Well, yeah, I think for a number of reasons, none of which are book related, we will get some answers as to what we're dealing with here in episode 8.
I mean I feel like they almost have to unless episode 8 just ignores Daniel and Helen altogether because the
Yeah.
setup here in episode 7 is we're going to take you to this place. And that's how you're going to learn the thing you had to sign the NDAs about. And as
Hmm.
episode 7 ends, they are arriving and seeing the drills. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. I
um,
actually was I chuckled a little bit, sort of at the meta commentary. I think it's when um Anna and Charlotte are talking. I know we have a note we want to make about them where I think it's Anna that says, "Oh, you're one of those that just wants them to, get right to the end of the trick and just, see the end of it. You don't care about the theatrics. You don't care about, just sort of the explanation. You just want to see the end of the trick." And it's sort of like, well, yeah, that's kind of what you're doing here. You're making this stretch out for several episodes.
yeah, like I'm like Ellen. I'm kind of the sort of person who said, just tell me back in the hangar and we're in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
What do you mean we gotta fly on planes so you can show me drills in Georgia? Just
right, right.
tell me, man. Um, Briefly, yeah, Anna and Charlotte. I don't know, man. Did you? It's funny because I've got a Pulp Fiction reference at the ready. Foot rubs? Mm? She offers her a
Yes.
foot rub. Is
It
that?
was an odd thing to have in there just between people that might have just met each other. So there's got to be something there.
Yeah, is that is some intimacy going on there? Is there some romance going on here? Um, I don't know. I was curious why I had put together that the silos were in Georgia. I feel like back in season one, and or I guessed that. And
Yeah,
I had the answer. Don't worry. Yeah. So this is my own curiosity looking back into my own past, because season one came out in like 2023 or whatever.
yeah.
But it does relate to the stuff that happens in the silo this week, and maybe we can use that as a segue. to Gloria, to the Flame Keepers. And there's an episode in season one called The Flame Keepers. I think it's season one, episode
Hmm.
7. Because I wanted to also refresh my memory about who Gloria was.
Yeah.
And so we see her in this episode where Bernard manages to get Regina, I think her name is, who's also in that season. They're doing some callbacks here to season one, is what I'm reminding people
Yeah.
of.
There is, to that point, there's a Silo wiki. I had to go reference that to remind myself who all these people were this episode.
Cool. Yeah. This is one of the negatives about the fact that I haven't read the books. I find myself to be overly cautious about doing anything like that. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to
Yeah.
stumble into the spoilers that come from the books. But so I look back at my own recap and all that. But Gloria was in season one as a flame keeper when she was like telling Juliet about Juliet's mother and stuff like this. I believe it was even in Gloria's quarters that Juliet found the hard drive
Yeah.
that's a continually reference and so on. Um, but there was also a like Georgia guidebook,
Hmm.
and I think that's why. And when we got to the season one finale, I may have also called up some um images of the Atlanta skyline and compared them. Anyway, I know I land on this guessfully. I think that's Atlanta and that they're in Georgia. And then those are also in that episode,
Yeah.
Gloria had like some kind of hallucination of herself as a child on the beach. And yeah, that was reading my article I wrote at the time, feeding again into my speculations that maybe they haven't really been in the silo for as long as everyone thinks they have been. But yeah, who
Yeah,
knows?
I did go refresh some of that story, and if I recall this correctly, that was a situation where they were going to kill her, but Robert is going to let her live and says, "I'll just let her live with her hallucinations or her fascinations." He grants that to Juliet, and so you're just sort of thought, "Oh, she's just going to be, stuck in a room hallucinating for the rest of her life." But they have, recovered some of the things that she had, and she seems to be somewhat lucid and has at least a good portion of her memory back at this point.
Yeah, I think they were also back in season one giving her the memory suppressing drugs. And so we
Right.
could think about that in terms of the effects of that, maybe in a more sane way than what we saw with Juliet here in season three, what that might look like. But then, however it happened exactly, she hasn't been on them for a while, so she's pretty lucid here. And the point of Bernard summoning her basically is because she has this mission diary. Mission, it turns out, is the name of a person
Hmm.
who kept this diary during the rebellion or whatever the better term is for it. That was like
Yeah,
140
during
years
during
ago.
the Great Rebellion that happened about 144 years before this.
Yeah, the Great Rebellion. Because we had
Yeah.
another one more recently now. With Salvador Quinn and so on, and this decision to put the vitamin D plus into the water. And you get this account from the mission diary about the effects of that, which is the most extreme, perhaps being as people are losing their memory, losing themselves, not remembering their own children, and things like that. You had mass suicides of
Yeah.
thousands.
And this was interesting to me, and we talked about this right before we got on, that um, it seems as though this story of Mission as a who was a porter but was also a part of this rebellion 140 some odd years ago. We will get this story told, or are getting this story told through this diary that he kept that Gloria brings to Bernard and to Juliet. Um, in the second book, basically the last third of the second book is largely about Mission and what happened during that rebellion and what he did, what his role was, and some of the things that he documented, some of the things that he kept, some of the ways that he was involved. And so, eh, as you and I were talking about, I didn't anticipate we would get a third timeline and see some of these flashbacks or flash forwards, depending on how you want to look at it. So it does appear that we will get a lot of this story, but it's going to be told through this diary that they've now recovered.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's possible. Who
Yeah.
knows what they're doing? Who knows what they'll do next season? But from a viewer's perspective, I kind of hope they don't give us a third timeline. I don't know. I
I
guess I
agree.
don't buy the idea that there would be enough meaningful stuff there to make it worth it in the TV
Yeah.
show. Oh, well, I haven't read the book, so I don't know for sure. But
You basically have heard it. You have heard it. There
yeah,
was a rebellion. As a result of that rebellion, things start going really, really bad. And so now we heard what happened.
one connection I can make here, again, somewhat speculatively, is well, we were talking again last week because we learned that Shirley's pregnant and so on about why they have that whole kind of plan in terms of who's allowed to have children and who isn't. This is a possibility, I think, to connect it up to is if they have at least some ideas, whether they're well grounded or not, about what kind of people would end up going along when it comes to this sort of thing, like putting the drugs in the water, as
Yeah,
opposed to killing themselves,
right.
and that they are trying to weed out the possibility. They're trying to kill out like the bloodlines of those who would be like flame keepers or something. And I guess
Yes.
that might make some sort of sense. Maybe that's going to be the connection here.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that even goes back to, Allison and Holston from the first episode or two of the entire show, right? And them discovering that they're not going to have a baby, or the inhibitor wasn't removed from her. I think that's what happened. And so, yeah, this idea of who can and who can't have these children, we're going to, these people that are a little bit too curious for their own good, we're going to start, cutting those branches, as it were.
Yeah, which I don't know. I mean, look, I don't think that holds up in like scientific terms. Don't get me wrong here. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm not saying that it's like well-grounded eugenics or something, but that might be the rationale that's at play. That's a thought that occurred to
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Maybe. Another question I have here that I don't necessarily want to belabor, is whether this whole plan that they hatch and then abort makes sense. Um, this is part of why Bernard brings Gloria into Juliet, right? Is because she is hesitating about the decision of whether to plant these explosives into judicial
yeah,
because it seems likely to kill like 1,000 people potentially if they set off these bombs, right? And so Bernard's saying, but hey,
yep,
look, if you don't do this, here's what happened 140 years ago, and you have these mass suicides, it's going to be even worse. We got to stop the vitamin D plus in the water.
yeah.
Um, what do you think here? Did this seem coherent enough to you? Do I need to push further to
I
raise the
thought
question?
I watched the episode once. I thought it was a very haphazard, just sort of seat of our pants plan, and I watched it a second time, and I felt even more convicted in that. That it's just like I'm not exactly sure what this. I mean, I guess it destroys the source of it, and we're gonna have to figure out a way to communicate people to not drink it and let it, run its course or whatever. But if I remember from earlier in the series, they had the ability to communicate to the entire silo, or they've hacked into that. Why not just do it that way? Why cause all this damage and violence?
See, here's how I interpreted it. I'm with you because I wrote on the episode and everything else. But by the time we did the end of the episode, they aborted the plan. So I just kind of
Hmm.
decided not to care too much, I guess. You know what I mean? Because like it works narratively. It's like just don't worry about it too much. But we're gonna worry about it a little bit more here because I can't help myself. The way I understood it is that
Yeah.
because they think that Lucas and Kennedy have died. Well, we'll return to that
Hmm.
here in a moment because that's important. We have to talk about that. Um, then they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do about the safeguard? Because that's the big threat coming from the algorithm. I don't think they have that term for it, but whatever. They know about the safeguard.
Yeah.
And they know that the safeguard pipe comes in through judicial.
Yeah.
So my understanding of the plan here with the explosives has to do with that. So about
Mm.
destroying the safeguard pipe. And then they have this brief conversation of like, well, but if the poison gets released anyway, like, isn't it still maybe going to kill everyone, even though they've exploded the pipe? And it seems like they just kind of like wave their hands at like, we've got some suits that can protect us. We'll figure it out. And I
Yeah.
think it's just kind of left at that. But then that hardly connects up to the problem with the water in a logistical way. But
Yeah.
then the narrative weight is more put on the stuff about the water, right? So it's like they're making a big jump, I think, from we set off these bombs in judicial to disable the safeguard to then be able to address the problem with the water. I don't think the details are ever filled in a meaningful way of what their plan
Yeah,
was.
you're right. I guess my first impression was a sort of a two birds, one stone situation, but you're right. The water was way up top. Judicial, where they're going to do this bombing, is not at that same level. So yeah, this is sort of a take out the enemy. I guess it's if they have to make a judgment on do they think that the safeguard is imminent, and Juliet already knows that the vitamin D is in the water, and so sort of what's the biggest threat out of those two? You know, they can't, I guess, can't do anything about the water, and so we have to focus on the safeguard. Then we'll figure out something to do with the water. But they're kind of, I mean, stuck. They have two terrible choices to make at this point.
Yeah, no, again, it's weird to belabor it because it feels like it's been like obviated by the end of the episode. You know what I mean? And I think it works narratively well enough. But if you do dwell with it, yeah, I think there's a definite question about this, and the way that Bernard, through Gloria, tries to present it to Juliet as this kind of Sophie's choice. I think he's used that term before. Or again, maybe it's more like a trolley problem or
Yeah, it
something
is. It
than
is.
the
Yep.
Soviet choice. But whatever. Yeah, yeah, it's supposed to be like more like a trolley problem, right? Like, oh yeah, well, of course it's bad that 1,000 people die, but it's going to be way worse, of course, if 10,000 people die. But it would also be bad if like 2,000 people died. You know what I mean? And he's like, well, if you just let this go for, and I mean, this does land for me sort of viscerally. Not just if you're imagining, okay, well, you let them go through with the plan with the vitamin D plus. It's not just the 2,000 suicides, but
Yeah.
the idea that the other 8,000 people would lose themselves, lose their memory. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
that's like I don't know, that's like a walking death in a way,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
So I get that, but yeah, the fact that I'm not sure you thought through the logistics here.
Yeah, I guess it remains to be seen. Okay, even okay, they're not going to take care of the safeguard. Hopefully, they now presume Lucas and Patrick will take care of that. But they've still got the water problem to worry about, right? I mean, they're just going to not drink water forever. They're going to just drink wine and juice for the rest of their lives and try to figure out how to make 9,000 other people do the same thing. I really don't know how they're going to address that issue.
I think, yeah, the plan has to be we disable the safeguard. Then we take care of the problem with the water.
Yeah,
And in the meantime, those of us who are doing this
yeah,
don't drink the water, right?
yeah,
Like, so if like other people in the silo are drinking the water and starting to lose their memories some, that sucks. But we have to keep our wits about us, right?
yes,
And they
yes,
did at least crack open the door. And I thought it was important that they did this to say, have Sims give that line like, drink juice, drink milk, drink wine. And I don't know if that's hydrating really. But don't drink anything that comes out of the tap. I did wonder, when it comes to the milk and the juice, they have cows somewhere.
Could be oat milk or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, it could be oat milk, could be soy milk. But then I think that like you make that with water, one way or another. I feel like, you know, I'm not sure, but if you're watering the apple trees with the drugged water,
Yeah,
does the that seep into the apple juice at some point?
that's a good point.
Or
Yeah.
does the tree sufficiently filter it? Who knows? But
I
probably this isn't going to go far enough to where that matters, I guess.
It seems like it's for some period of time and in some amount of way they were giving Juliet the memory suppression drugs, but they were able to recover her and roll that back. So maybe they're thinking, okay, yes, some people are going to get infected by this, but eventually we'll be able to get it all back because it won't be too long that they're on these things, that they're drinking this water. So we can handle that problem, as you said, as soon as we've taken care of judicial.
Yeah. We do get a little bit more on this front in the before times with Charlotte, if we want to fold that in here, where it seems like she is doing much better and has a lot of her memories back. Um, Man, it's almost a metaphysical type question of whether she really does. If if I
Yeah.
wipe your memory and then
And the
I tell
doctor
you
saying
about your past.
Yeah, and the doctor saying that they're going to put the actual mission she was on in a vault and keep that away. We're not going to give you that, so that there's certainly reasons for that I'm sure will be explored. So yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of questions here about that.
It's an interesting, not to go too far into the weeds on this. It is to me, though, an interesting kind of inversion of Sigmund Freud, who said that when it comes to repressed trauma, that the analysand, right, the one undergoing psychoanalysis, needs to re-experience
Mm,
the repressed event in all of its affect, with all of the emotion attached to it to like
yeah.
traverse it or whatever, however he puts that. Whereas what we're getting here from Dr. Cernovich is like, eh, the goal is that you'll quote remember, but it
Yeah,
won't feel like anything, you know.
that's right. Yeah. Oh boy, yeah. No, I knew I think they have to. They're going to have to explore that the reasoning and the justification for not giving her that memory. I'm sure. I'm sure that that will tie in as we start learning things in episodes 8 and 9. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, confident about that. Just also thinking about, okay, well, how these drugs work and all of that. So back to the silo, I do feel like that has to be the plan. Disable the safeguard because they know they're under the threat of just being everyone killed immediately. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's no good. You gotta get rid of that threat. And then they'll figure out the water stuff. That has to be what they're thinking. Um, but so the other big thing would be what bookends the episode, right? Like, so at the beginning, Lucas and Patrick Kennedy are going out on their mission to Silo 17. We have a nice little scene where Lucas is struck by the stars and all their beauty and it's sublime and
Mm.
all of that.
Nice,
Um,
nice callback to his conversation with Juliet when they were looking at the stars in the cafeteria.
yeah, and he's been like an amateur astronomer. Sorry, I struggled to get that out for some reason. Um, but then we go to the perspective of the silo. They've been in radio contact. We hear, well, first Patrick and Lucas hear buzzing.
Hmm.
Then we cut back into the silo, and it's like we're also hearing the buzzing, and then we hear gunshots. Basically, we're hearing gunfire, and then they lose radio contact. So that leads us to think that they're dead. But if they were dead in that way, it would have given us some really interesting information to ruminate on. At the end of the episode, we learn that they're not dead because they reestablished radio contact. I don't know if that meant you had to go to a different channel and they got out of range or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's still a question that feels a bit different about the gunfire and the buzzing. What do we do with this?
Yeah. So I mean, I have to tell you, even with everything that I have that I understand and know, this is a complete mystery to me. It's like what's going on out there. I I mean, in no way when Juliet went out did she experience anything like this that
Right?
we know of. We didn't run into any, armed militia or something when we were in Silo 17. We don't I have no clue what the buzzing could be from or what that might be indicative of. So yeah, this is what they experienced, and obviously this was hidden for a reason. We don't know yet if we're going to go into that silo or if we'll see that story from them, but I just frankly have no idea what this might be.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
I
I'm
don't
hoping,
think Camille sent out raiders with guns and protective suits to take them out. I don't think that's that simple.
no, for a couple of reasons. Lay this all out, but again, it's more questions than anything. Just thinking through the questions, though. As you said, when Juliet went to Silo 17, she didn't encounter anything like this. No soldiers with guns or anything like
Right.
that. And no drones. I think about drones maybe in part because of the buzzing, you know?
Mm,
And so it could make some sense potentially, I guess, for there to be drones deployed by Silo 1 or
yeah.
whomever to shoot and kill these guys as they're trying to go to Silo 17. You can't simply poison them because they're wearing their suits are too good or whatever. And they didn't
Yep.
do that to
Yep.
Juliet because they didn't see that one coming, but they've seen this one coming.
Correct.
Maybe. One wrinkle in that hypothesis, though, is that they were supposed to go out at dawn, and Juliet ends up sending them out earlier.
Yep.
So was Camille or the powers that be or whatever, were they sufficiently prepared to where even though they were out early in the middle of the night, that still worked. But they didn't actually get killed. You know what I mean? Like it'd be easier for me to theorize if they had gotten killed that
Hmm.
it was something like I just said, right? Oh, well, it's like Silo 1 deployed drones and the drones killed them and well, sorry guys.
Yeah.
Now if they didn't die, then what? Um, what happened here? Did were they shot at but somehow managed to elude the gunfire and get to safety? Um,
Yeah, which seems unlikely. I mean, it does, maybe they were near the entrance to 17. They were near all of these dead bodies. They saw them, so maybe they were, but it just that would be such a diversion from everything we've seen about the outside, about how security is run, about what we know, even about conversations with Silo One. It would be incredibly new and kind of I don't know. It would be a wrinkle that would rub me the wrong way, I think, if it's just, oh, well, anytime we don't like what's going on, we're going to send out soldiers to take care of it.
yeah, so I don't know what else it could be. I mean, did the kids in Silo 17 have guns? Or, are there
I don't
maybe
think
are there
so.
are there maybe other people from other silos who've snuck outside now who have guns? You know what I mean? It's like it's another one of those things where it's just like, man, I just want more information as fast as I can get more information here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because again, it would be kind of easier to hypothesize if they had died, but trying to
yeah,
figure out how it is that we heard these gunshots and buzzing, but they survived. And we almost just kind of have to
yeah.
wait and see, I think.
I think this is a wait and see situation. I think it will, if we come into answers on this, it will do a lot to explain the nature of what's happening with the other silos and who's in control and what's going on between these. And so will we get the full view of this next episode? I don't know, but it may become clear.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we want to be cautious, we'll say this is our hope by the end of the season.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like because that's how the show tends to go, but I'm hoping for a bit more next episode than that. I hope we move forward meaningfully
yeah.
and that what we get at the end of the season is an even bigger kind of reveal. Like I'm hoping the end of season 3 feels more like the end of season 1 than the end of season 2,
Absolutely, definitely,
where
definitely.
at the end of season 1 you're like, oh, wow, okay,
That's
that's
shocker. Yeah,
yeah, you're like you really opened up what's going on in this story, and I'm hoping that this season's similar. Um, One more thing we have to talk about, which again, it just almost feels like an addendum, but it's there almost every episode. Who killed Orla Kent and the continuing investigation? It's gonna matter,
it's
right? It's gonna
gonna.
matter. We
It
can't
it
just
has
like
to. It has
you can't
to.
just ignore it. And I do have a guess about maybe how it might matter soon, but we'll see. It's very speculative. Regardless, what we get in this episode is primarily that Knox's father is actually alive because he designed something
Hmm.
for Ed Harwood. And their
Yeah.
deal was that then Harwood would fake his death. That's how I
Yes. Yeah.
understand it. And I think that's like really the one significant piece of information we get here, although there's some other stuff that goes on narrative wise. My first guess would be that what he designed was connecting up the mines and supply in some way that was allowing for the thefts from critical supply. But then I also started thinking about to the extent that we increasingly know that Ed Harwood is a criminal
Mm.
or outlaw of sorts.
Yeah.
I mean, because he doesn't respect the authority. You know what I
No.
mean?
Yeah. And
And
I didn't like Holston, but at least I respected him. Yeah.
yeah, he respected Holston. He doesn't respect Juliet, and he certainly doesn't respect Paul Billings, bootlicker, whatever.
Right.
Um, and the way that they've deepened his character a bit, and I'm thinking back to how he made this remark back in the meeting at the beginning of the season about how the tunnels are only allowed to go out so far and everything else.
Hmm.
What if they've been going out further? What if they have made contact with other silos? What if Ed Harwood has made contact through other silos through the mines? I don't get the feeling like the authority figures in judicial or IT or the Raiders are going down there and really paying close attention to what's going on in the mines.
No, I think yeah, this is sort of purgatory, Siberia. They're sending people down there to do work, and as long as the product comes up for what they're in the mines to do, then they just leave it alone because they want to have nothing to do with them. And so yeah, there could be a lot happening down there that we don't understand, including the designing of things like weapons and designing of things that might eventually lead to other discoveries. And so yeah, I think you're right. I think they're completely ignoring what's happening down there as long as whatever they're mining gets up to the powers that be.
Yeah, and even more so, they seem to use it more as punishment than anything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
we at least haven't got a lot of detail about what they're mining and the usefulness of whatever they're mining. So, maybe there's something to that,
Yeah.
but the way that it's been in the story so far has been primarily like, well, in the silo, you don't go to prison, you get sent to the mines,
Hmm.
and that's hard labor, and if you die, you die, you know. And so Harwood is savvy to that. However, he's gotten the position of power down there. Um, it's like, well, you don't care about anyone in the mines, and I don't
Yeah.
care about you. I don't care about your rules.
Yeah. I
And
mean, this whole thing is, I mean, I don't want to necessarily, we don't have to wrap a bow on it. Yeah, it's just maybe you could even tell from, you know, the recaps that I've written for our podcast for the last 3 weeks. So, man, I think I'm getting to a point where I'm like, all right, I want it to connect. It needs to start connecting because we've been on this sort of side quest for the entire season, and I'm ready for it to see what it is and how it ties back to. I can't see the connection at all between what Juliet and Lucas and Patrick are doing. So just tell me soon, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you didn't even put it in your little summary that we started with, I don't think.
No, I
I
don't have
was,
anything. I'm just like subconsciously ignoring it because I'm like, just come on, tell me something.
it's similar if you go look at my recap on TV Obsessive. It's like I've generally been like separating the timelines. And this week in particular, it's like I think I go before times timeline, all the main stuff in Silo 17 at the end. I'm just like, oh yeah, by the way, who killed Orla Khan? So, but I've been thinking about, well, how is it going to connect up?
Yeah,
Again, one thing we have learned through all of this is that they're running out of these critical supplies and have this like 2 year ticking clock.
yeah,
That's going to matter. That's definitely going to matter, at least in terms of the big problem
definitely,
of season 4.
definitely.
But what else do we get here? And one of the questions that keeps sticking with me is not just who killed Orla Khan and why, but why have they been stealing the stuff from critical supply? What have they been doing it with it? Where has it been going?
Yeah,
And so on. You know what I mean? And that's where I started kind of speculating a little bit or imagining the possibility that, well, maybe there is some kind of almost underground city that's been created through maybe miners in multiple silos
ooh.
meeting up together. And I don't know, they've hollowed out some kind of secret space and then they need light bulbs. And like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Like, I do want to find out more, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think they have to at least provide some resolution here by the end of the season. I would think some level of resolution as to who
yeah.
killed Orla Kent.
I, I think so. I think so. Yeah, it's becoming a. I don't know. I hate, you just blanket using a term like, red herring or a diversion or something, because there will be a connection at some point. I'm quite confident in that. I'm sure that it will matter. But I do think you might be on the right track, that somebody knows something. Somebody is aware of something. And so they're trying to use what was there and I mean, that they are now stolen in massive quantities to try to preserve themselves, to keep themselves safe. Yeah, who those people are, who the person leading this is, I don't know that we know yet. We might, but it has to be something that, yeah, is in the category of self-preservation.
Yeah, I think so. And I could be wrong, but I've been guessing that this storyline is not going to be some kind of closed loop on the side, but rather more like it's in the margins right now, and it's going to somehow take over the whole
Yeah,
frame by the future in some way.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I think if nothing else, the fact they're running out of the critical supplies points in that direction. So we'll see. It's weird too because I continue to like everything points in the direction of suspecting Ed Harwood and his daughter Glenda when it comes to Orla Kent's murder, and there's still some part of me like, well, got to be more to it than that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah, too
maybe it
obvious.
will be
Yeah,
that straightforward though, because the bigger mystery is elsewhere. So we'll see.
yeah.
All right, good. I think that about does it for this episode. Oh, I didn't talk about the Simses. So the Simses are fighting. The Simses are fighting.
So,
Robert and Camille are fighting.
so yeah, just on that, I was dead wrong 3 episodes ago when I was like, well, that's the end of their relationship. Is that they'll be, separated from one another the rest of the season. No, they're still trying to play house, as it were, and pretend like, they're still a family, but that's deteriorating quickly.
Yeah, and we got this whole thing where Camille is pointing the gun at Nurse Amy, like she's going to kill Amy, and for a moment they're under threat because if the outsiders at all had gone through with the plan to blow up Judicial, that's where they were, and they might have died. But again, that didn't happen. But no, they're definitely tensions in the marriage at this point. If they
Yeah,
both
I'd
make
say
it through
so.
all of this, they might need some counseling, some marriage counseling. Um, I do think that that's interesting, and like actually, this does connect up with something else. I want to say I know we're running a bit long. I'll try to keep it brief. But it got me thinking about how there's been this kind of running tension throughout this whole series. And I presume this applies to the books as well.
Yeah.
But it's like in the one direction, it's they've been lying to us. I want the truth and I want to be free.
Hmm.
And as Patrick Kennedy says, even towards the beginning of this episode, I think he's quoting his wife, he's like, I want to be free even just for 1 second.
Yeah. Yep.
Even if I die, I just want to be free for 1 second. And then, of course, in the other direction is, yeah, I know that, this might feel problematic, but you gotta go along or else humanity's gonna die.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing a certain version of that between Robert and Camille, right? Because it's not like Camille thinks that um, doing all this stuff is good,
Yeah.
including wiping everyone's memory and all of that. Like she thinks that's very bad, and definitely doesn't want to lose her memory, doesn't want to forget her son or any of that, she views it as this like terrible forced choice, because if the other option is
Yeah.
everyone dies by, like literally fully dead, then if unfortunately we have to wipe everyone's memory, well, at least the people survive in the flesh. And I guess I'm not sure at this point whether she thinks that's humanity as a whole or whether she has knowledge of there being people in other silos.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
sure whether she's aware of that either. It is very much a stance of comply or die that she is sort of laying over the entire silo. I think the algorithm is certainly contributing to that. We also didn't even mention on the fact that the algorithm told Camille that, even if you stop the safeguard, it's only momentarily or it's only temporary, whatever the word is that that it uses. So sort of Camille sort of has this picture of what is actually going to happen, and so she's like, "No, you really have to do this, or we are all going to die no matter what." So yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting sort of that choice that she's forcing people to make.
that there is no defeating the safeguard. So you're right. I mean, she does at least know about Silo 17, and she
Hmm.
knows that pretty much everyone in Silo 17 died.
Yep.
So she does, I guess, know that other silos exist. But look, honestly, even as a viewer, I don't know if there are people alive in any of the other silos. Do you? Like,
Nope.
I don't know for sure. Like maybe they all died like Silo 17. Maybe Silo 18 is
Yeah.
the last one. I don't
We
know for
have no
sure.
idea.
I keep speculating that, the world at large is mostly fine, but I could be
Yeah.
wrong about that. You know what I mean? Like maybe it is going to come down to these are the last 9,000 human beings on Earth. You know what I mean? Like I don't know
Yeah.
anything for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So that deepens the
I,
tension.
I, I really cannot wait for I cannot wait for some of these things to be uncovered because well, we're going to have I think some really good conversations about what is happening here and why.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it too. Really enjoying this show, really enjoying the season in particular. And now at this point, I think we've hit on everything I wanted to be sure to hit on Anything still on your mind before we wrap up?
I think that's it. We covered a lot.
All right, man. We did it. Okay, so thanks as always for listening to the podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If so, please do leave us a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. If you want to follow the site on social media, if you search for TV Obsessive, you should find us. And be sure to check out the website, tvobsessive.com. You can find written work there on all sorts of currently airing TV shows and things in the past. Of course, we'll continue into the future. I am writing recaps on Silo each week. If you want to read about this episode, you can go there and find that and read what I had to say. And that will continue as well. And as for the podcast, we'll be back with you next week.
Yes, sir. Look forward to that. We will see you then.